If we'll stand for a moment of silence and then the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Gibson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Linlaw.
Here.
Commissioner McGee.
Here.
Commissioner Catagano. Here. Commissioner Hyatt.
First thing, any modifications on the agenda? None?
None.
Nope, none for me.
We'll go to presentation and brief announcements. I'm going to share with y'all a grandparent's worst nightmare. Today, my daughter called, said my 15-year-old granddaughter had got out her window and left. Edgewater PD was involved. They went through her computer and learned that she played Fortnite and she met a young man, 18 years of age. He came down and picked her up. I know all of y'all can't imagine what was running through our minds. This is a hell of a situation and not much a grandparent, or for that matter, a parent, can do. Luckily enough, there was a tag reader on Volco Road, and Edgewater PD got the tag number. From the computer, they got the young man's name and telephone number. My grandson called him on the telephone and said, "You are in one hell of a position. You've taken a 15-year-old, and you best get your ass back here," pardon my French, ASAP. Make a long story short, at 5 o'clock, got word. The police had got him. She's in okay shape, considering. You know, every one of us here have heard this on TV. And I realize parents are a little bit taken back to spy, and I'm gonna use that word, on their children and what their children are doing online. If it hadn't have been for that tag reader, they may have been able to track him by his phone number, but an excellent job done by the police. I'm very thankful today. I may be a little off during this meeting. Please bear with me.
Understandable.
Okay. Is there any presentations this evening? No. Okay. Citizens' participation, non-agenda items. You need to fill out a form if you wish to speak on an agenda item or if you just want to address the commission. Mr. Adams, do we have?
Yes. Janet Shira.
Actually, I'd prefer if Tanner Andrews goes before me.
Tanner Andrews.
Should be a very fast joint presentation, just so that it's clear. I am a notary. Could you state and spell your name for us?
My name is Janet Shira, Janetshira.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell me how you became familiar with the plans for what we call the Garden Street or Oak Hill PUD?
I came to City Hall on September 23rd and requested the plans of Tasha. She didn't have them, they couldn't find them, but she provided them to me at the City Commission meeting later that night.
And did you have a chance to look at sheets C 3.0, 3.1, and 3.2?
Yes.
And what did you see?
That those plans that I received had 7 ponds on the plans, including 2 in the center common area.
And did you see the same on L1 and L2?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. It appears then that we have voted on a set of plans that wasn't here. You know that we have to have the plans within 180 days. I mean, we have to have the complete application within 180 days of the preliminary approval. And we didn't have the plans that we voted on a couple of weeks ago until at least September. Even now, I don't believe the city has received the 15 prints that 24-200 calls for. But because the plans on which the city voted were not available, the citizens didn't have a meaningful opportunity to review and comment on them. It's possible that you all didn't have a meaningful opportunity to review and comment on them since they weren't here. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next.
Janet Shira.
I'm good.
Lisa Bender.
Lisa Bender, 576 North US Highway 1, Oak Hill, 32759. When Oak Ridge Colony was first brought before this board, and we were adamant about that we didn't feel it was good and that the scope was way too broad, too many homes, it was wetlands, and this committee, sans Joe, said it was the state of Florida's rules that you were abiding by and that you had no control and that your hands were tied. I've reviewed both those meetings a couple times. According to what I've Googled and researched, the state does not control that. Your comprehensive plan and the land use plan controls that. The state gives you guidelines. Am I correct, Scott? So
I don't even know if the state gives you guidelines. The state requires you to adopt a comprehensive plan and then land development regulations to implement the comprehensive plan.
that,
And the city applies. when
and the
developed.
comprehensive plan is supposed to be reviewed and revised every 5 to 7 years, is
Yes.
what I've read?
Your report.
And we haven't.
We did it in 2021.
We did a land use in 2021.
No,
We
did
didn't
your-
do comprehensive because all I can find online for you guys is 2014. And then there's amendments in there.
There's an EAR amendment that was done in 2021, I think.
But did you revise like your land use and the comprehensive and
Well, the land use is part of the comprehensive plan.
the wetlands and what was going to be affected?
Here, let me tell you. Let's see. I have it here. November 18, 2021 is a letter to Ray Eubanks, the State Land Planning Agency. it was the 2019 City of Oak Hill Evaluation and Placeable Determination Comprehensive Plan amendments. And there were amendments to all the goals outlined in the, and it went to DOT, St. John's, BGMC, everything like that. And it addressed future land use element, transportation element, housing element, public facilities element, coastal element, conservation element, recreation and open space element, intergovernmental element, and capital improvement element.
When you did the land use, did you, how did you determine, like, the land was good for an RPUD? Or do you guys just defer to St. John's Water Management that,
Well, you don't make a determination in the comprehensive plan that it is consistent, is appropriate for an RPUD. RPUD is zoning, not land use. So land use would say, for instance, you're allowed 4 units an acre. Then there's going to be different zoning categories that are consistent with the comprehensive plan, including the future land use map. So then you rezone to one of those zoning elements, zoning categories.
so
which
in the
one would be
comprehensive
RPUD.
plan that we have right now, how many units are we okay with in an RPUD that we,
You have to look at the future land use designation. The RPUD is actually a zoning designation. It is not a future land use designation. So we would have a residential.
you had it as residential?
It was a residential, so I think that allows 4 units per acre. I'd have to defer to the planners, but I think if you provided with utilities, you can go up to 10 units an acre, is what I've read.
Okay, because all of that land used to be 1 home per 5 acres. And I'm pretty sure that was there for a reason, because of the amount of water. I gave Joe some pictures that he can probably share with you guys if you don't even, I don't know if you care or not, but the water and the way that the watershed is going to happen, there's going to be massive flooding. And I don't care what the engineers say. Victoria Park over in DeLand is a good example of that, and those people that are being flooded. That's my worst fear.
I don't know
So-
when your land use was changed.
Yeah.
The land use may have been agricultural at one time and then changed to residential. I don't know when that occurred.
Then my other point is, now that they've been zoned as an RPUD, why are they allowed to keep a billboard on that? Because I'm pretty sure that that goes against the zoning.
I'm not familiar with the facts of that. I don't know if the billboard
Well, I
is
know for
on their
Volusia
property
County,
or on
Volusia
their-
County, it goes against the zoning. I don't know here
Yeah.
how your local
I don't know.
is.
But I don't know if it's on that property or is it on the state right away. I don't know.
It's on the property, it's not on a state right
Okay,
way.
I don't know. I don't know any of the facts about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Terry Mason.
Hello, my name is Terry Mason. I live at 2616 India Palm Drive, Edgewater. I'm here speaking on behalf of Donna Elms, 659 Angelia Drive. Last time she was here, she addressed concern with Oak Ridge Colony Development about the backside of the property where it shares the pond. There was supposed to be a couple stipulations before we moved forward about widening, draining, plumbing, what we were going to do. We're just trying to reach out and see what those stipulations were. We haven't heard much or where this is going forward with that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Joanne Welch.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is my last time to remind everybody that we are having a Veterans Day event on Veterans Day 11/11 at 11 a.m. It's up at the Powell property. Lots of flag waving, lots of people, lots of talking. Please come out and join us. The second issue I had on there was I was wondering if there's been any update on Appendix A. I know the Commission did vote several meetings ago to have it done, I believe, by Corey Surveying. I could be wrong, but it was voted that that was going to be updated. I wonder if there was an update or anything we know about that.
I have sent what information I have over to Corey, whatever his name is, I forget his name. He's supposed to be getting back to me as far as what the cost would be to actually have that done.
Okay, I thought the cost was presented. I thought a cost was presented in the meeting and it was voted on.
Okay, I don't remember. It probably was. I just have to get back in touch with him then.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's it, sir.
That's it. Okay.
Drew didn't mention the pancake breakfast that's gonna be held prior to the thing we have in the park. It's gonna be at 8 o'clock at Mary DeWeese Park. All veterans and anybody else who wants to go, please come.
Thank you, Commissioner. Move on to consent agenda. Commission meeting minutes, October 14th, 2024.
I have a correction.
Okay.
Where we're talking again about the thing we're gonna have at the Powell property. It says Power and should be Powell.
Spelling error.
Spell check probably
That's all.
changed that for you.
Catch on here, I
Cruz, I read it.
It's all the same thing.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve it with the corrections Commissioner Hyatt
I'll second
arose.
it.
Any discussion? Call for the vote?
Mayor Gibson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindlaw,
Yes.
Commissioner McGee,
Yes.
Commissioner Catagano,
Yes.
Commissioner Hyatt.
Yes.
Next, city administration reports.
Yes, sir, I actually have two things. First one is an update on the debris removal for the city. I had a meeting today with Crowder Golf that will be doing the debris hauling, and Thompson Consulting that will be doing the debris monitoring. They've assured me that they can start the process this Wednesday. It should take at most 2 weeks, they say, to actually have the job completed. I'm just waiting on some paperwork from them that I can sign to authorize them starting the work and get them going on Wednesday.
Very good.
Second thing I had is I received a request from a commissioner to have the November 11th meeting moved to November 12th because of Veterans Day being on the 11th. Just wanted to bring it to the commission to see if there's a consensus to actually have that meeting moved to the 12th.
I'm fine.
Why
Okay
not?
with me.
Yeah.
The only thing that has to be made clear is this is still a regular meeting, not a special meeting, because the, any newly elected public officials take office at the first regular meeting after the election, and I don't want the going from the 11th to the 12th to be viewed as a special meeting, because I think my understanding is y'all canceled your next regular meeting at the end of November, so the following regular meeting would be in December, so that might create issues. So the 12th, if y'all do this, the 12th will be considered still a regular meeting for those
That's fine.
purposes.
Yeah.
That's okay.
You need a vote or just by consensus?
Well, how do they want to handle the items on the agenda? Do we want to bring that to their attention? The burns?
Oh. Well, we had an item for Burns SciTech. They were bringing their application for the portables at their school. That was going to be coming to you on the 11th, but that's now going to be going to the 12th if we decide to move that meeting.
Have they been advertised for the 11th?
They have been advertised for the 11th.
I think if it's already been advertised, we kind of stuck with it, aren't we?
Hello?
Are they asking for a variance or waiver or something?
Special
This is a special exception.
Special exception.
Oh, okay.
So they probably sent out a notice to adjoining property owners. And the question would be, that could they still send out another notice if they did it, immediately to renotice it. We could put signs on the doors, but the law allows you to, if you have a meeting, you can continue something at the meeting to another specific date and time. But, you know, we're not, if you don't have the meeting on the 11th, we don't have that opportunity to have the meeting and say, hey, we're doing it on the 12th. So that was kind of it's kind of a quandary right there with that.
Is there sufficient legal time between
I
now
believe
and
they
then
have to
to
mail
say?
it 15 days.
Yep. We'd have to get the meeting out tomorrow.
Yeah, have to be mailed 15 days before.
Oh,
It's always an option if the city wants to do the mailings for them, or if you rather have them do themselves. It's up to you.
And we can also announce it at the PLDRC meeting, my understanding is before that, we can announce when it is. The problem is, somebody who gets a notice that says it's on the 11th and did receive notice of the PLDRC
Yeah.
meeting, may not show up at the PLDRC meeting. They just plan on coming to the commission meeting, and they won't be told what occurs, that it's been moved. So that's, the best thing to do is, if we can, I think you have two options. One, keep it on the 11th, or two, if you can legally renotice it with the 15-day notice, then go ahead and do that. Those would be the two options.
Is that sufficient time to give notice?
If we mail it tomorrow.
You got 14 days.
It has to be put in the mail 15 days before.
Yeah.
So what I don't know
Make
the
it.
count of days.
Today's
Well, my thought is, because of the fact that we've got items on that, and it's time sensitive, we have the meeting on the 11th.
come on, either way, either day.
Time,
Good.
We're good for the 11th. Okay. City Attorney, second reading, ordinance 2024-10.
Ordinance number 2024-10 for second and final reading. An ordinance of the City of Oak Hill, Volusia County, Florida, adopting a one-year moratorium of the city accepting any applications for a residential plan unit development, RPUD, zoning, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Motion to approve the second reading?
I'll second it.
Further discussion, commissioners?
No, I think it's a good idea.
Call for the vote.
public comments.
Do you have any?
Yes.
Okay, public comments.
Tanner Andrews.
I was for the CDD,
Oh, sorry.
it's a G2.
Sorry. My mistake.
Anybody else? Okay, call for the vote.
Mayor Gibson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Linlaw.
Yes.
Commissioner McKee,
Yes,
Commissioner Catagano,
Yes.
Commissioner Hines.
Yes,
Second reading, ordinance 2024-12.
Ordinance number 2024-12 by title only for second and final reading. Ordinance granting the petition of OHTC Development LLC for establishment of a community development district, creating and establishing the Oak Hill Town Center Community Development District, providing for name, powers, and duties, providing for description and boundaries, providing initial members of Board of Supervisors, providing severability and effective date.
A motion to approve 2024-12?
second,
We have a motion and a second. Discussion, commissioners?
I think the thing to do would be allow the applicant to make a presentation.
Oh,
And this
okay.
is a public hearing, so I'd like the applicant to make a presentation and then open it up for public comment and then bring it back to the commission for discussion.
Okay,
But this is not quasi judicial, this is
Right.
a legislative action.
All righty.
Mr. Posey.
Good evening, Joey Posey, 420 South Nova, attorney for the landowner and the applicant. And I guess to add on to the discussion we've had over the last few months of how the function of a CDD works, the intricacies, and trying to do the best we can for the citizens of Oak Hill. We thought it would be appropriate to touch on the statutory provisions that speak to CDDs, especially as part of the review process. And a lot of it we've already talked about in tandem with, how it's beneficial to the city, why it's important as an instrument for financing to ensure that you can do major improvements and how they're funded. I do have the engineers with me tonight for any specific questions, if there are any. And I also brought along the district manager that we are looking to engage, and she has an extensive, she has been a part of several dozen CDDs in the southeast of the United States. So she's very knowledgeable about the specifics, if there are any specific questions after the few meetings we've had on this. But just to touch on, I do have a copy of the petition too, if anybody has any specific questions regarding that. But again, just to factually how we got here, back in July, we made the initial submittal with the exhibits, everything that was planned for the property, the estimate of cost for the potential improvements, and how we were going about to do the infrastructure improvements, and finding a way to do it in an effective way, an efficient way that's beneficial for both the community that is being developed out there, but also the citizens at large for Oak Hill. We had the first meeting the other day, or a few weeks ago, and this is that final meeting to really just nail home if there's any remaining questions. So when you're talking about the statutory review process for this, Section 190.005 subsection 1E speaks to 6 criteria. And I think Scott has alluded to this in a few meetings now, and they're very straightforward in what they're asking. And you really are asking for consistency. Is this a good idea to have for part of a development on the developer side, and making sure you get the best out of the development? The first question is whether the statements contained in the petition have been found to be true and correct. There's nothing in our petition that I'm aware of that's a misrepresentation of fact, and I've also have the consultants available if there's any specific questions to dive into. There was an extensive analysis on the impacts to the city that's included in that petition, and all of the boundaries, the locations, the proposed improvements, all of those are detailed in the petition too. The second question that you're asking is the consistency with the comp plan and the elements. Well, you got a lot of them actually. I dove into it, and just to walk through this a little bit, just to give you a sense of the ideas from the financing aspect, because that's really the CDD's function. It's a financing mechanism for the improvements. That the future land use element talks about 50 or more units as self-sufficient neighborhoods. That's policy 1.3.2. Policy 1.1 or 0.11.1 talks about the enforcement of provisions of ordinances requiring connections to central sewer and sanitary sewer. So, that's the whole point of this, is to go through and find an assurance that there's a mechanism to provide that public good along US 1, and also to provide service within the community. The Chapter 4 regarding public facilities, policy 1.12, talks about the interlocal that the city has entered into in conjunction with the city of Edgewater and Volusia County to provide services, and that the goal is to meet the specified level of services to accommodate new growth. It says it specifically. So that's part of this too, that you have the current utility provider that needs to extend utilities further south, that this is a mechanism to do that, and from a funding perspective, which is what the CDD's function is to do, and obviously to maintain those things it constructs, that you have that assurance beyond what would normally be the case with either the city taking over maintenance and the obligation, or a private HOA or developer funded side. Objective 1.3 talks about deficiencies in facilities or services that are considered to be the first priority. So again, Oak Hill, in trying to move those utilities further south to make sure we can accommodate existing residents, that's the primary goal for this. We're trying to have those improvements there to keep the ball rolling, getting it past Bills Hill, so it can go even further at the direction of the city, and but being that first step. Chapter 7, the recreation and open space element, talks about the encouragement of additional passive recreational facilities through joint participation, when you're talking about programs for public and private. The whole part of the other aspect of this too is that the CDD can be that recreational component to have those public accommodations that folks in Oak Hill Town Center can enjoy, but also the citizens can enjoy with the large amenity center. And how we're also in partnership with the cemeteries out there, that we're trying to be a part of the community fabric and have a funding mechanism to ensure that those folks have improvements in a cemetery with parking, fencing, and also associated amenities. Chapter 8, intergovernmental coordination element, talks about the efficiency in planning and development, and that it's talked specifically to the public and private entities in a manner that improves quality of life and efficiency. That's the whole point of going through this exercise, that from an efficiency standpoint, you have a mechanism to ensure that those improvements are made, that we had an extensive conversation about how you fund those improvements and how there's an assurance of those improvements being funded, and the CDD is a great tool to accomplish that. The next statutory element's the third one. It's talking about it being sufficiently compact and of size that would be developable and function as part of a district. I've got a local expert here that can talk to other examples of CDDs that are even smaller than this one, CDDs that are larger than this one. And the elements that we have going on with this one is you have the residential component, obviously, and then the commercial component along the frontage that will come online at some point too. So there's infrastructure for both on-site with both of those, that mixed-use aspect of it, the off-site with the public utilities, the potential for taking over maintenance and improvements for Bills Hill. So there's a lot of that can be accomplished in a localized area, which clearly meets the statutory definition of what we're talking about. And it can be done in a cost-effective manner. That's the whole point of going through the CDD process too, from the developer's side. Subsection 4 talks about the alternatives that may be available and whether one is the best alternative to accomplish those goals. Over the number of conversations we've had about this, I can't seem to stress enough that this has to be, that when you're talking about a perpetual local government unit, which is a CDD, it has quasi-governmental powers, and which by law can assess authority to levy assessments. It has a ability to recapture those monies to ensure compliance and that those construction occurs. That's the best assurance you can ask for the local community that would be constructed eventually, but also to ensure that those public utilities that are being contemplated as part of this project are constructed. Because that's how that statutory provision's been met. Subsection 5 talks about the incompatibility with other local governments or other existing regional or community development partners that may be providing services. Well, this is very similar to what you would do for any other development. Really the choices are it gets transferred over to Oak Hill for ongoing maintenance and in perpetuity, or that there's another mechanism to accomplishing that same goal, which is the representation that we're making by helping maintain those roads in perpetuity. The same is true with the utilities, that the construction of those utilities, that the current service provider, which happens to be the county at the moment, would take over control, and the maintenance would be joint maintenance with the county, or the county takes over and maintains as a part of doing of your cost of connection too. But either way, it's the same process, just played out in a better way for the citizens of Oak Hill. That if you have the CDD's maintenance responsibility as to the public roads, you have its construction obligations to the utility improvements, then the appropriate governmental agency takes control of those improvements, and you get the same or better level of service than would otherwise be provided by both either the city or the county, depending on which aspect we're talking about. And the last subsection is that whether the area that will be served is amenable to the separate governmental district. I mean, of course, the landowner is, and I mean, quite honestly, this is the best opportunity to ensure that the services are provided within this development and also along those public improvements that can be accomplished on US 1, that it's limited in scope, and I think we've stressed several times that it's not an obligation that somehow becomes an obligation of others in the city. No, there's no difference in connection costs. You know, you go to the county to the same connection costs you would pay here, you pay in Pearson. Nothing changes from that perspective. The only thing that changes is that the funding mechanism for who constructed it and then who's paying for it, which is on the developer side through the development. It isn't on the public side through connection and other public benefits that the other citizens would enjoy in the city. And so I think to kind of put a bow on this, that it alleviates the public burden. That's really what the goal is here, that the services and facilities that are required for the city to provide as part of doing a development, that gets shifted. That gets shifted to the land, it gets shifted to the district to manage and control that part, with the assurance that the city has the enforcement mechanisms and nothing changes from that approval process. It's limited in purpose. It's like I identified, it's the US 1 improvements that we're talking about for utilities. It's localized to the community of Oak Hill Town Center. It's Bills Hill Road. And it encompasses all of those things that I know are important for everybody here. We're talking about the stormwater, we're talking about utilities, we're talking about the way that Bills Hill can be improved from a roadway network. So I have a hard time believing that this has much downside, if any. Of course, it's tough to say that on the developer side and not get a funny look. But again, we're here to answer any questions. We wanted to walk through that for your guys' benefit, just to be sure that if there was any remaining questions, but I do have the development team here to answer specifics if there are any specifics to address.
Section 12. Has the district entered into a interlocal agreement with the city of Oak Hill?
Not currently, no.
When does that take place? It doesn't say.
That's correct, and that would take place on the timing for construction on our side too, because we want to be sure that we're rocking and rolling, and we've got the improvements, and I'm sure you guys would want the assurance of what roadway standards are being met on your side too, and that's when we would enter into that interlocal where we would take over the ongoing maintenance of those roads.
Scott? My concern is, shouldn't this agreement be in effect at the point of this voting?
No, it can't be, because the CDD doesn't exist. We can't
Correct.
contract with an entity that doesn't exist.
Okay.
Secondly, I think there's going to be some questions that we're going to have answered with the county over who's going to own the utilities. County's a utility provider. I think the city would like to own the utilities. I don't know if the county's going to let us do it. So we're going to have that will probably be a three-party agreement between us, the county, and the developer. So that still has to be addressed.
That's the only question I have. Anybody else?
I have a question about the notice. So on the one that got published in the Daytona Beach News Journal said the meeting was today, but this is the second reading. I have it on my phone if you want to see it.
No.
The way you looked at me.
No, I know. I take it.
It's
I
today.
take your word for it.
It says October 28th, 2024. And so I was wondering, so we already had one, right?
You want me to answer that?
Second meeting?
Well, when you read the law only calls for one public hearing, and the developer has to do the notices. The developer did all the notices. Typically, an ordinance is read twice by title. So that's kind of we read the title before, but that really wasn't the public hearing. Tonight's the public hearing, and the law only requires one public hearing, which is the same for all other ordinances that are initiated by like if you do a rezoning ordinance and it's initiated by the property owner, there's technically only one public hearing.
And part of our reluctance in making sure we checked all our boxes is we felt it appropriate to hold the first meeting ahead of time to ensure that if there is some ambiguity on our end. The one public meeting doesn't change. It's always the 28th. It's just whether there's two opportunities for comment and input that we felt would probably be appropriate in this context. But the way the statute reads, it only reads one public hearing.
Anyone else?
I guess the only other comment that I would have is I guess we're never going to get our workshop with the expert, because you guys are just pushing this right on through and ignoring that. So that's sad, but true.
Anything else? Is there a motion?
They have some other,
Oh, wait a minute. Mr.
Joey,
Jackson.
Public comment.
Mr. Andrews.
well, there's, Joey may have other people present. Is he done, Joey?
Well, and again, we would reserve a few minutes if
Yes.
there's address questions.
They
and-
brought to the presentation?
Right. But-
Yes.
But we're happy to, address.
Mr. Andrews.
Perfect.
We got one ahead of you.
That's okay. I was asked to drop this off.
Okay.
Thank you,
Somebody
sir.
else.
Joey, why don't you have your consultant do a presentation? Whatever presentation they're going to do.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cindy Serbone. My address for work is 2300 Glades Road, Suite 410 West, Boca Raton, Florida. My firm, Rathel Hunt & Associates, I've been there 9 years. The company's been in existence 25 years, and we manage over 200 special districts in the state of Florida and a few outside the state of Florida. I personally manage districts from the Panhandle all the way down to South Miami, East Coast, West Coast, middle of the state, and occasionally up in Northeast Florida. What special districts do, as you've heard before, and I'll tell you what my firm's role is and what my role is offer an opportunity to finance public improvements and make the area and the community safe from a stormwater perspective, drainage perspective, habitable from roadway perspective, and then any other items that the developer chooses to use that would have a public purpose, linear parks, playgrounds, amenity centers, etc. So our role is, once a CDD is formed, a special local governmental entity, is to, according to the ordinance that established it, is hold a landowners meeting, hold an organizational meeting, and get this governmental entity started. Assuming that the governmental entity, based on board decision, wants to move forward and issue bonds, we are one of several professionals that works in that process. Once those bonds are issued, we continue to run the meetings in perpetuity and work with the board at the appropriate time, the debt assessments, as well as what we call operation and maintenance assessments, professional fees, and then, of course, the field operations expenses to keep the stormwater, the roads, irrigation, landscaping in great shape and working order, including building a reserve if necessary for future improvements or remediation. We get those on the tax roll, and we continue to hold those meetings. We serve as the records custodian. We serve oftentimes, but not always, as a registered agent. We provide all accounting, finance, record retention, and almost anything a district manager or city manager would do, with the exception, again, small local government entity, that the attorney or the engineer would do. We do everything else. I've become experienced over the years in working with board members of all backgrounds, professional and otherwise, and working with engineers and attorneys that have all sorts of backgrounds as well. Once the developer steps away under Florida statutes, that would be after 6 years and 250 registered voters are living in the district, the board starts a transition to the residents, to the registered voters living within the boundaries of the district. Then I work in that transition and help the residents understand what it means to be a government officer, and help them, along with other staff members, learn about the district, learn about the background of it if they don't know already, and give them information so they can make decisions in order to maintain the public improvements within their CDD. Let me pause. Maybe that was too much information.
Does your firm also oversee the construction too, or just the administration of the CDD itself?
That's a great question. No, we don't oversee the construction, and that construction could happen in a variety of ways. Our part would be to assist with the bond requisition process and make sure that everything is in order before it goes over to the trustee for payment.
And now, since you've had so much experience on all these other CDDs, what's the downside?
I can't tell you a downside. I haven't seen one yet, and I deal with small districts where there might be 200 homes or less, and then I also manage Babcock Ranch, if you have heard of that in Punta
Yeah, I've
Gorda.
heard of that, yeah.
So I have all sizes. I have residential only and mixed use that I take care of.
Okay,
So-
thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Citizens?
Tanner Andrews.
Let me be clear on this. I'm representing none other than myself, and my motivation is basically just to see if I can avoid work in the future. The statute there, 190.005(2)B, telling us how to establish districts, points us up to 190.005(1)D, whose important directive is that the hearing be advertised 4 weeks prior to the festivities. Well, in order for that to be meaningful, obviously, those notices would have to be for your first reading, not the second one that was described earlier as just going ahead and basically push it through what we'd already decided on. So, as you may have heard, the advert for this was pointing to tonight. So effectively, the previous thing where you tried to button everything down doesn't really count under the statute. In order to make sure that I don't have to do work in the future, I think we have to account this as our first reading, and then of course we'll set a second reading at an appropriate time. You can announce the date of that second reading here, I would imagine. That's my...
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
John Taylor.
Was tasked with carrying it up.
My name's John Taylor. I live at 240 Lagoon Avenue. I had just a couple of questions about this. What does all this cost for this city development district?
The city actually made money. They paid a $15,000 application fee, and I don't think they've spent it all yet. After it gets formed, it actually defers costs from the city, because the CDD picks up operational costs that normally the city would pay, but we don't take care of those maintenance obligations, but we still get all the same tax revenue. There's not an offset. The people within the CDD, they will get notice when they buy. They will be advised going into it that they could be subject to additional assessments and taxes. So they're going to pay higher taxes, most likely, in that subdivision to pay for the amenities that the CDD assumes. When they assume those amenities, stormwater, parks, things like that, that relieves the city from the obligation of having to do those, although we have no revenue offset. So we get the same amount of revenue, we shift some of the expenses to the city, so there should be, to the CDD, so there's no expense to the city.
All right, my second question would be oversight.
They have, it's kind of they manage themselves. They are their own board. When we delegate, or if the commission agrees to create the CDD, there's a certain set of powers that by creating the CDD that they get, and then there's another set of powers that if they want to ask the commission to engage in, they have to come back and ask for another delegation of that particular power. They still are subject to our Code enforcement, all of our land development regulations, they're still subject to all of our regulations. And we, still law enforcement, sheriff will be out there, you know, they're still subject to all those regulations, so we have the oversight of that, like, just like we would have if the CDD wasn't there.
Okay. And finally, what power do you have to give up to make this happen? What responsibility, I guess it would be?
I would, based on what they're doing, they're gonna construct they're gonna do all the infrastructure improvements, and they're going to maintain those improvements. The stormwater, which we wouldn't have to do, they're going to, the one specific power outside, you know, I said if once you create a CDD, there's certain powers they get by law, and there's special powers. They're only asking for one special power, and that's power, let me see if I can find it, is to, Joey, remember what that was? It was to do recreational amenities. It's not how it's worded. I'm trying to see if I can find it real quick. Let's see. You remember how that's worded, Joey?
That's okay.
Yeah,
I understand what you're saying.
They're gonna, parks and recreational things, they're going to be responsible for that. That's a special power we're delegating to them. So we, the city, will not have to maintain sidewalks, streetlights, you know, and they're gonna put, typically with a CDD, they can probably speak to it better than I, but based on my research indicates, they'll put nicer streetlights in than what the city than what the city puts where they go. They're gonna put nice ones in, but they pay for it. They pay for the upkeep of that. They may have wider sidewalks, and the cracks may get fixed quicker. They pay for all that themselves. The city doesn't have to pay for that. And their stormwater will be maintained. And the cemetery. Be maintaining the cemetery, all the amenities around the cemetery and all that stuff.
So in their purview, their oversight is themselves, and anything that is outside that purview has to be approved by the council? Is that what I'm?
Yeah, but they're still subject to all of our rules and regulations.
Okay.
You know, if we adopt an ordinance that says, pick something, whatever you want to say it is, that will apply there. And also in there, we're not giving up the authority to regulate the law specifically. Here, I can read it to you. This is Florida Statute 190.002, subsection 3. It is further the purpose and intent of the legislature that a district, which would be the CDD, created under this chapter, not have or exercise any zoning or development permitting power. That the establishment of the Independent Community Development District, as provided in this act, not be a development order within the meaning of Chapter 380, and that all applicable planning, permitting laws, rules, regulations, and policies control the development of the land to be served by the district. It is further the purpose and intent of the legislature that no debt or obligation of the district constitutes a burden on any local general purpose government without its consent. That's a city without its consent.
So if there was a constituent problem, then we would, or a taxpayer problem in the, they would, we still, our, you know, what do you call it, path to resolution is still the same.
It would depend on what you say the constituent problem is. If they,
Okay,
if they
so
come here and
if,
say, hey,
we come in
have
and say, hey, we
potholes,
saw some cracks all over the sidewalks and there's stuff.
we flood. There. So, you know, that type of
Okay.
thing. So,
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. Anyone else?
Okay.
Scott, I got a question on so, I didn't see any of that stuff about the wider sidewalks and the fancier streetlights and
those are all things they have the ability to control and do.
But they
It
don't
won't be-
they don't have to.
They don't have to, but they're not
Right.
prohibited. You don't get into that detail. You say the CDD gives them the ability to develop it and control and maintain it.
And the same thing with the cemetery too, right? They would have to do that anyway, whether we gave them this or not.
I think that's part of the PUD process, so it could be, so a lot of the stuff we're talking about with this CDD is also, you sometimes see with an HOA.
Like stormwater,
No.
any development would have to take care of that, right?
No, that's not true.
It doesn't ever come
No,
to
it
be
does.
on the burden on the city?
It does sometimes. It could be dedicated to the public. Sure.
And that
And the
would be,
roads could be dedicated to the public and be
and that would be
maintained?
something that the commission voted on, right?
It would be in the plat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am?
Okay. I came down here this morning to review the master plan and go over it. And there's no master plan in this town hall, according to Jerome, that shows the town center project. You can't read this little tiny plan. We searched all over. The only set of plans we could find were for phase 1. But we could not find any plans anywhere for the whole master plan. So Joey, if you could get your engineers to please send us down some copies. Jerome said he had never seen this. So we need to have full-size drawings down here. Just so you know, we could not find any full-size drawings searching for it today. And we were here for 4 hours, 3 hours. No, I gotta sit back here, I just stole yours.
Joanne Welch.
Drew Ann Welch, 222 Cypress Avenue. I wanted to speak to the issue regarding the cemeteries. We have worked, the cemeteries are run by a board of directors. We are a Florida not-for-profit corporation that Mr. Posey was kind enough to help us form. And he has worked very closely with us, Brad has worked very closely with us to make sure that things are running smoothly as we go through this, because it is a transitional phase. The cemeteries have been run by individuals, as the mayor knows, most of you do know, individuals within the community. They've managed it, they've kept it up, and they've done it. The cemeteries will still remain a part, they will still belong to our corporation. We will still be maintaining them. We are working with Joey and with Brad and the owners to establish where we are going to have fencing. They have discussed with us putting in the fencing for us. So our next task is how we will get there, how we will get in, and how it will work. At some point in time, HOA fees, we have discussed, and it was discussed with them, how the HOA fees will work. The HOA documents have not been written yet, as is my understanding from our last discussion with Joey and Brad. When those are written, when the HOA docs are written, then we will know how they're going to help us maintain and grow. But the maintenance will be on the people who are still working with the cemetery. We will still be in charge. It will still be our sweat equity.
You're an
and our-
LLC?
We're incorporated.
Okay,
Oak Hill Saints and Sinners, Inc.
thank you.
So I wanted to clarify that, when people are saying, oh, they're all gonna get all this, we're gonna get all this, I'd like you to understand, we will have assistance. They will be, as they have been, good neighbors and partners with us in this project, but we will still be in charge of the project, which means we will still be having cleanups. We will still be doing the work. We will still be, and understand Center Cemetery is still an active cemetery where we continue to have interments. So we have to make allowances when we do our gates there for hearses and things like that to get in. Are there any questions from the commission? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Drew.
Joey, what's this issue with the plans?
I think the issue is we keep providing them and then they disappear. I just confirmed with the engineer, we provide full plans, and, I think I even provided them digitally too, so I don't mind making them available, and if it means driving down here with another boatload of them, happy to do it. Every time it's requested as part of a resubmittal, or even as, our initial submittals, we give you the physical plans too, and I know people are busy and things get lost in the shuffle, but my office hasn't moved, so if there's any way I can help, I'm happy to. But I'll make a point on my end too, just to, I want to make sure it's transparent. I'm not trying to.
Joe Rucker, what plans is she referring to?
She's referring to the big set of plans that's incorporated as part of one of the exhibits to the CDDs that shows the location of potential utility improvements. And then there's only one set of phase drawings that are full construction drawings, which is phase 1. So maybe there's some confusion as to which plans we were looking at, but I think she was referring to one of the exhibits that's incorporated as an exhibit to the petition.
The master plan is the one I'm referring
Right.
to. The only one we could find in the office was phase 1 development plan.
Right, which is the full set of construction plans and the approval on the development order side, not the exhibit to the.
So she's referring to things related to the final development order?
No, she's referring to the
To
exhibit.
the side, okay. When she says master plan?
Correct. It's labeled as the master plan in the exhibit.
Okay. All right.
And I just wanted to briefly touch on just the two things I think I heard, besides Drew, and, again, we're good, we're trying to be good partners with them. They're wonderful people too, those folks that go out there and spend their time to, out of just the kindness of their hearts to do the right thing and maintain those cemeteries. And quite frankly, I want to see at some point that it becomes something that's, professionally, that you get to look at from the roadside and say, wow, it's come a long way. That's my hope one day, and we want to be a part of that. The other two comments I heard, I think the other thing regarding the functionally how the CDD works, we are still subject to sunshine. So there's minutes, there's meetings. Those meetings have to be noticed, advertised. That doesn't change. HOA doesn't do that. So there's that level of oversight that isn't typically required, and and those are public meetings too. So advertised in the same way like you would do here. And the other statutory point I wanted to make, just to reiterate the language, is that subsection D of 190.005.1 states a local public hearing on the petition. Hearing singular. And it goes on to state, notice of the hearing shall be published 4 weeks on the public newspaper for successive weeks. Hearing singular. So, I don't question the wisdom of the drafters, but they used hearing singular. Other than that, I'm available for questions, and we do have the consultants available. So, please, we want to be a resource. So if there's anything we can do to help, we're happy to.
Scott?
The master plan was available.
Yes, sir.
This is what was back in July?
Yes, it was. That's correct.
Okay.
It was included as part of the initial petition on July 3rd. That is correct.
Okay.
As I stated, you done, Joe?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't mean for you to sit down. I wasn't trying to make it go. As I previously stated, this isn't quasi-judicial, which means it's not a substantial competent evidence type review. This is a legislative policy, which means it's under the fairly debatable standard. But you need to focus on the 6 elements that were out of the review criteria that's set statutorily. I read that one section that this is not the statute. I'm not going to read it again, but there's that section regarding not being a development order 190.002 subsection 3. I would also read section 190.004 subsection 3 that says the establishment of an independent community development district as provided in this act is not a development order within the meaning of chapter 380. All governmental planning, environmental, and land development laws, regulations, and ordinances apply to all development of land within the community development district. Community development districts do not have the power of a local government to adopt comprehensive plan, building codes, or land development code, as those terms are defined in the Community Development Planning Act. A district shall take no action which is inconsistent with applicable comprehensive plans, ordinances, or regulations of the applicable local general purpose government or city. When we look at 190.005, the sections that Joey went through, one of the things I would point out is the law doesn't actually require you to find consistency. You know, when we do consistency with the comp plan, when we do analysis for, and our staff does the analysis for development orders, which would include the preliminary and final development orders, and also getting into rezonings and special exceptions and variances, they need to determine consistency. Technically, what the law says is that the district, number 2 says whether the establishment of the district is inconsistent with the community, any applicable element or portion of the comprehensive plan. There's a difference between not being inconsistent and being consistent. Those are really technically 2 different things. So what we're looking for, y'all should be looking at, is not, is it consistent with our comprehensive plan? Although Joey went through and stated several things he thought that were consistent with it, the focus should be, well, not what it's consistent with, but where is it inconsistent with, or does it say something is it proposing something that would be contrary to what our comprehensive plan says? When I looked through it, I searched, the word community development district is not in our comprehensive plan. The word CDD is not in our comprehensive plan. So I couldn't find any reference in our regulations about that. So you have those 6 items to evaluate. Go to their powers real quick. Under the powers, there are certain powers that if a CDD is approved, there's certain powers that go with the CDD by law. And those powers are to, finance, fund, plan, establish, acquire, construct, reconstruct, enlarge, extend infrastructure, facilities, systems. Water management and control for the lands within the district, and to connect some or all the facilities with roads and bridges. Water supply, sewer, wastewater management. Bridges, culverts that may be needed to drain, ditch, canal, floodways. District roads have to be equal or greater to the specifications of the city. They have the ability to do buses, trolleys, transit shelters, ride sharing. Investigation and remediation costs associated with cleanup of actual or perceived environmental contamination. They have the ability to have conservation areas, mitigation areas, wildlife habitat. Let's see. Any other project that is approved through interlocal agreement, zoning conditions. Then you get into the specialty ones, and this is only with the specific delegation of the local government, there are some powers they can have. First one, parks and facility for indoor and outdoor recreation, cultural, and education uses. This is one I was trying to find when I was talking to that gentleman. That is the one power, additional power they are requesting, the delegation of. Then you can have fire prevention control, school buildings, related structures, site improvements, security systems, security personnel, private security within the CDD, control and elimination of mosquitoes, waste collection and disposal. Those are additional things that y'all would have to specifically delegate to them to have that authority, that they don't have that authority. So the only specific thing that they're asking for, over and above what comes to the authority all CDDs have, is that part about recreation. So I think that is about everything I have. I didn't write down the things that Joey identified as he thought were consistent. I know that when I looked through it looking for inconsistency, I came across 3 things I thought were a little consistent. Policy 1.3.2 under the land use element on page 1-12 says residential developments of 50 units or more should try to be self-sufficient. We should try to have them be self-sufficient. I think having a CDD makes them somewhat self-sufficient. Under the coastal management element, page 5-25, policy 1.8.1. The city should look for alternative sources of revenue that the city doesn't have to pay to help with the coastal management flooding issues. Well, this is an alternative source of revenue. And then under the capital improvement element, page 9-6, under drainage, subparagraph 2, it is important to provide for regular maintenance of drainage systems, swales, ditches, and retention areas. CDD creates that opportunity for them to provide enhanced over and above what the city does. So, but like I said, this is not quasi-judicial. This isn't a planning document. This is not something we're looking for an analysis to see, is it consistent with our comprehensive plan? We just want to make sure it's not inconsistent with our comprehensive plan. And so if you have any questions, feel free to ask. It might be better for the applicant.
In your opinion, it's consistent?
No, in my opinion, it's not inconsistent.
Okay.
I couldn't find anything that is inconsistent in our comprehensive plan.
I think you call that the legal shuffle.
Yes.
That's exactly what it's called.
Questions? Any questions for Mr. Posey?
Not for me.
So we need a motion that includes the special exception, the
No,
statement?
just a motion to approve the ordinance because that is included within, that special power is included within the delegation.
Yep.
Make a motion that we approve.
Oh, you already have, I guess you already have a
Yeah,
motion.
I thought so.
Call for the vote?
Mayor Gibson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindall,
Yes.
Commissioner McGee,
Yes.
Commissioner Catagano,
No.
Commissioner Hyatt.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1. Okay, next is Oak Hill Town Center subdivision plat approved.
This, I think the planner's going to do a presentation. Yeah, this is, basically what you're looking at is to make sure, and the staff has reviewed this, to make sure that it complies with the final development order of the Oak Hill Town Center and that it does comply with the requirements of state law. It has been submitted to our engineers for review. They retained a licensed surveyor to go through and do an analysis of it and compare it, look at all the statutory requirements, and report it back to our engineers. So with that, I can, and then I think our engineers to the planners. So with that, they're going to go ahead and do the presentation. Do you have it written? Well, Joey can do a presentation.
Mr. Posey?
I'm more than happy to.
Good evening, Joey Posey, 420 South Nova, attorney for the applicant. Besides what's documented in the staff report, this was really a little bit of a perfunctory process when it comes to the platting and subdividing of property. And what you're asking really is the consistency with the underlying zoning, which is that PUD document, and consistency with your land development code. Again, I think it was identified by staff, and if I remember correctly, there was, God, I can't remember. I don't think it was on this. It was, there's nothing of significance or substance that was remaining outstanding on this. So, from a platting perspective, the drawing of the lines, it's correct in form, it's correct in meeting your code provisions. In terms of maybe questions regarding the layout or other aspects of it that may be more of a curiosity or we're happy to answer, I do have the engineers here to give some insight as to that. But as to the specifics as to the platting and the function of going through that platting process, this is consistent with your code. This is consistent with the PUD, underlying PUD document. There's a substantial reduction in lot of units. We also made that accommodation on the platting side instruments for what was discussed on the development order side with the Osteen Street folks that were concerned about the set off to make sure that there's appropriate buffer for them. And we jogged out that area in the natural preservation area, so there's no platting of lots in that area anymore. And other than that, that's really the long and the short. So I think this is just the last step in what was discussed as part of the other details that have fleshed themselves out over the development order process, but at this point, we're really just talking about the platting of lines and the plat instrument itself in consistency with code. So I'm happy to answer any specific questions you may have with the instrument, or if there's any questions that, again, I'm also happy to answer any general questions, but I just want to make sure that in terms of the review of what we're asking on this request, you know, the platting instrument's what controls, and it is, your staff has found it consistent with code, it's consistent with the underlying RPUD, or consistent with the PUD that was adopted for Oak Hill Town Center. And, you know, our engineer is also here to make that same statement if necessary, so.
I got a question, Mr. Posey. It looked like on the sewage line that came down US 1 that you guys went some far, I couldn't tell the distance, but south of Bills Hill Road.
I'm going to have to defer to the engineer on those details.
It appeared, I could be misreading it, but that's what it looked like to me.
Harry Newkirk, Newkirk Engineering, 1230 North US Highway 1, Ormond Beach. Then you had a question on Bills Hill Road.
Yeah, it looks like the sewage line that you got running down US 1 there, it went beyond Bills Hill Road some distance. Right.
So the master plan for utilities, let me think about this. There's a 12-inch water main that comes through the site, and we stub it out to US 1. And then it runs, a 10-inch runs up to Bills Hill, and then a 12 will run down Bills Hill to US 1, and it stubs across Bills Hill for future extensions down US 1. That's the water. The sewer, there's 2 lift stations in phase 1 that run a force main that extends to Bills Hill, and it goes across the street, you know, onto the north side of Bills Hill for future extensions.
Okay.
And they can go to US 1 or back to the other 2 phases.
Okay, that's what I saw, okay.
Yes, yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Will the lift stations have backup power in case there's a storm, when the next storm comes?
Right.
Great question. The lift stations have generators. Both of them will have a generator.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's all I had.
Mr. Posey. A1A surveying Inc. What date did you get the survey?
The most recent survey?
For the plat?
Yeah.
Because I'm reading 9/14/2024.
It would have been, and that would be correct in terms of its updating. It's been a survey in process for, probably a few years now. But every incremental change that happens in working with your staff, even the Bills Hill, like we had to, you know, we got to get the folks back out there. The same with setting the monuments for the cemetery, that triggered an update. So every time we're making changes to accommodate those changes, surveyors got to restamp, put a new date. So it was a work in progress up through 9/2024.
Thank you. Do you have any confirmation when your plans were delivered to this office? In writing,
As to the plat,
master plans.
the master plans or the platting instrument?
The master plan, the one that the Miss Horning was asking about.
I don't have the exact date on me, but the master plans have been provided for several months now. That was a comment from Mead Hunt, and on our third submittal back, we provided those comments. With the master plans, I know 6 sheets. There's 2 for the site plan, there's 2 for the draining, and it goes through phases 1, 2, 3, 4. And it shows the commercial, and it does it for the water. We had already had master plans for water and sewer because the Volusia County required them when we were doing the design, because we had to master design it, so they knew the water lines were going to work for the overall development, so we have analysis on that. But you've had this for over probably 3 months, 3 or 4 months. We did those quite a while ago. The recent changes have all been related to last minute on trees. It's really trees and plating comments that have been going back and forth.
I'll be able to forward. This is Brad Balknick, 747 Hope Street, Orem Beach, Florida, with Newkirk Engineering. I've got a few emails for confirmation every single time we've dropped them off. Jerome, we received comments back and forth. When I dropped them off, I got a response from you saying received package so and so forth. So I can at least provide that to you guys as well. But we did get confirmation from the city of Oak Hill.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions for Mr. Post?
Just to be clear, I am happy to provide them still to any interested resident who would like them. So that's still open. I don't mind doing that.
Truck them down.
Well, and the other thing I want to make clear is y'all aren't approving any master plans.
Yes, I know.
That's not what's up for a vote. I think that's already been voted on.
Well, it's
and I'm
just
not
confusing.
100%, I'll be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure what's being referred to as a master plan. I don't even know exactly what they're talking about. I'd like a little bit more specifics as to what they're referring to.
Do we have a motion?
We got public comment?
Do we have public comment? Yes. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Adams.
Janet Shira.
Janet Shira. I just have one question because it wasn't covered in the staff report. When you plat, before you put the improvements in the ground, the code requires an construction estimate on the cost of improvements, and they have to post a bond for 110% of the cost of those improvements. So I just want to make sure that was done because it wasn't referred to at all in the staff report.
It's a condition of the final development order.
No, that, I hate to differ with you again, but it isn't, you cannot approve a plat which gives them.
But I'm just saying the development.
Once you approve it, it can be recorded. In fact, you're saying it's going to be recorded when you approve
The final development order, a bond in the amount of 110% of the cost of services or facilities that the applicant is required to construct, contract for construction or otherwise provide. That's a condition of our final development.
And a final development order is your final engineering plans. So as part of your final engineering plans, you should have gotten a cost of those improvements from their engineer. Then your engineer reviews them to make sure he's happy with that. And then they give you a 110% surety in case they don't come through with those improvements. That is in your code, and you cannot approve this without that bond. So I'm asking if that bond has been provided to the city.
It has not been provided yet, but.
Thank you.
Joey Posey, 420 South Nova, attorney for the applicant. I have no objection to the conditioning of the plating on that being provided in confirmation by the city's engineer again on that part of it for the plating process. So that's not an issue for us. Our intention the whole time was to go through that process prior to the actual plating of the property. So to alleviate concerns that if there's a condition that accompanies this adoption that no plating shall occur until that is signed off and approved by the city's engineer, then that is, I have no objection to that.
Shouldn't approve the plat without that.
I would also point out that the city's section 24-201 record subdivision plat submittal requirements does not require it. It requires a warranty bond in a form acceptable. There's nothing about a performance bond, but it will be provided before the bond is recorded. Typically, what cities do, they give the developer an option of proceeding with development without recording the plat.
Correct.
Or posting a bond.
Right.
This city does not, because as part of our final development order, you have to have a bond, 110% bond. Most cities will hold back the bond, let the development go forward, and not record the plat until all the development and
Your code has
infrastructure
that.
improves.
Your code has that provision in it.
Yeah, our development order says they have to provide a bond. I mean, it says it right there in the final development order. I read it to you. Don't shake your head no. I sat there and read it to you, all right? Now stick to planning.
Shouldn't be approving this plat without that bond.
Well, according to you, we can because our code provides that we can allow them and just hold the plat until the infrastructure is improved. I couldn't find that, but if you have it, great. I'm glad we have that. Then obviously we can approve it without the bond.
Any other comments, Mr. Adams?
No, sir.
Commissioners? We need a motion.
Motion to approve the O's Town Center subdivision Phase 1 plat approval.
I second it.
And I would make a condition that it will not be recorded until compliance with all final development order obligations.
With those stipulations.
Do you have that, Mr. Adams?
Get it from the tape.
It's all final development order obligations.
Okay. Call for the vote.
Mayor Gibson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindlow,
Yes.
Commissioner McGee,
Yes.
Commissioner Catagano,
No.
Commissioner Hyatt.
No.
Motion passes 3-2. City Planner, Lighthouse Cove rezoning, first reading.
Can we take a quick break there?
If that's, everybody want to take a 5-minute?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
On the agenda.
The number 2, Lighthouse Cove rezoning RPUD 2024-05, that should be second reading, correct?
That is second reading, but that's the first thing on the agenda, before yours, I think.
I might have I might have an old copy of the agenda then.
Let's see.
This is H1, this is the rezoning of the RPUD to MH3.
Let's see. So this is, let me see.
Yeah, it's H1, should be to MH3 from what I'm seeing here, but, yep, okay. Okay.
I'm sorry, the second one, okay.
All right, shall we begin?
Let me go ahead and read the title.
Title
Anyway,
first.
yeah, ordinance, apologize, I had them backwards. Ordinance number 2024-11 by title only for first reading. An ordinance of the City of Oak Hill, Florida, amending its unified development regulations by rezoning approximately 5.5 acres located north of Golden Bay Boulevard and east of US Highway 1, ID number 8531000090, from City of Oak Hill, RPUD, Residential Plan Unit Development, to MH3 Manufactured Home Residential Community, providing for severability, repealing all laws or parts of laws in conflict herewith, and providing when this ordinance shall take effect.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Nathan Milch, here with Kimley Horn, acting in the capacity of the city planning consultant. This application, Mr. Warlick is requesting approval of a conventional rezoning to MH3. The subject property consists of 5.5 acres, which is a portion of parcel ID 853100000090. The property is currently vacant and located within the jurisdictional limits of the city and does not have a formal address number assigned. The existing future land use designation of the property is medium density residential. The request is an MH3 rezoning of the 5.5 acres that is currently included within the existing Lighthouse Cove RPUD that was approved in 2003 via ordinance number 2003-08. This request is in conjunction with a request to amend the overall RPUD, which is the separate case, that'll be the next one, which would be for the preliminary development plan and development agreement. So essentially, this is a request to clear up some previous confusion with the RPUD boundary. When I guess it got originally approved in 2003, there was a drainage canal running across that southeast portion of the property. So I believe that the intent at that time was that they were adding the 5.5 acres jutting south into the parcel underneath to the south, rather than rezone that R1 parcel, which caused some confusion at the original reading here of the RPUD, which was on August 12th. So this is essentially a clear up of that instance. So per the Oak Hill Comp Plan, not more than 4 residential dwelling units per acre is permitted within the medium density residential land use designation. And then as stated in the staff report, you may go up to 10 dwelling units per acre if adequate central and water sewer services are provided. Future development of this property will require additional permitting and be subject to the City Land Development Code, as well as local and state agencies. All agencies have responded to this proposal. Mead and Hunt had no additional engineering comments, and Kimley Horn no additional planning comments. As stated before, the MH3 zoning of this parcel, or of this portion of the parcel, will allow for the entire parcel to now have a zoning designation of MH3, which means it is consistent and compatible with the surrounding area. The majority of the property to the south is consisting of platted, undeveloped lots, and this will allow for development consistent with the MH3 zoning standards and regulations in which those lots are platted as today, and buffering will be required consistent with the Land Development Code. The review criteria for this item is consistency of the proposed development with the comprehensive plan. In the staff report, we've identified several policies in which the development is consistent with, or the proposal is consistent with. Policy 1.34, subdivision regulations. Policy 1.61, future development having adequate public facilities, in which this case will be, this subdivision will be required to. Policy 1.65, meeting water and road and solid waste level of service standards, and policy 1.110, with the interconnectivity of streets will be required. At this stage, there's no site plan submitted for the parcel. However, that will be required as part of the next step. The staff report lists the standards for the MH3 zoning district. Based on the review by city staff and the technical review group, the rezoning is in compliance with the Land Development Code and comprehensive plan, and there was one informal comment issued by the Volusia County Fire Department that the property will be required to meet Florida Fire Prevention Code at time of development. The Planning and Land Development Regulation Commission made a motion to recommend approval of the rezoning, and that was passed unanimously on September 19th, 2024. So the action requested of the board today is to make a finding of consistency with the comprehensive plan and recommend approval of the conventional rezoning request for this first reading. And here for any questions, and as is the applicant.
You said that there was a ditch that was there that's no longer there, is that?
Based on the aerials, it looks like it's still there. But the site conditions such as that wouldn't, I think that's why they did make the change back when. But if, you know, for the RPUD, provided the applicant does move forward at that stage, they'll be required to mitigate and get any type of water management district permits in order to do that, which, yeah.
Does the St. John's Water Management, are they the ones that would look at our stormwater master plan? Because I believe back in, I think it was like the September meeting when we had I think it was Janet that got up and said something about a pond that they had recommended in that, a settling pond in that stormwater master plan that was on that property?
Yeah, is Beaton Hunt here today to discuss any of that? Okay, well, Scott and we did have a lot of back and forth on this, and I'm sure Scott can speak better to the stormwater master plan.
Well, when was the Meeting Hut Stormwater Master Plan done? Do we know?
It was a while ago, 8 months ago?
It's like March, April, somewhere in there.
I want to say
Spring.
Okay. Well, I can't find in our comp plan that has been incorporated in our comp plan. The only thing that's incorporated in our comp plan is a 2006 stormwater management plan. And a code section, I think that's been cited, 1.9.2 under the future land use map says the city of Oak Hill has amended the land development regulations to include as part of the development review the effects of proposed development and advancing the findings of the stormwater management plan. You know, there was a stormwater management plan done, which may be step one, but you have to incorporate that into your regulations. It doesn't appear like that has been incorporated in our comprehensive plan. It doesn't look like we've adopted any stormwater regulations pursuant to implement that master plan. We haven't adopted stormwater impact fees. We haven't adopted stormwater management fees. There's steps you have to go. You just can't approve a plan and not then incorporate it into your development regulations to effectively implement that plan. That hasn't been done yet. So maybe that can be done before now and the development of the site, that those rules and regulations can be put in effect, but you need to put those rules and regulations into effect to be able to apply them to to any applicant. They have to be adopted rules and regulations. And the law has special requirements when you start adopting regulations. You know, if we had, you can't, the law looks at it as what's called exactions, is what the Supreme Court calls it. Whether you want money or land, it's exactions. And when you do that, it has to be proportional to the impact caused by that particular applicant. So you can't go to a developer and say, you got to give us this land to help us resolve flooding on other property that you have nothing to do with. That's unconstitutional. So now if we had stormwater impact fees, then we could negotiate with the developer and say, hey, we'll give you some impact fee credits in exchange for you doing additional stormwater work here over building your pond, which can sometimes be a win-win because it's cheaper just to expand the stormwater system than build a whole new stormwater system. And that gets done a lot, where there's negotiation of impact fees, waiver of impact fees, or impact fee credits. But we don't have any of those tools. We don't have impact fees. We don't have stormwater management fees. We haven't adopted to my knowledge, any capital projects to build a retention pond. We haven't incorporated the plan that was adopted into our comp plan. We haven't adopted any land development regulations to address the stormwater. So these are all things that we need to do to then be able to, when a developer comes in and submits an application, to say, okay, these are what our rules are. Can we negotiate certain things? And so, now who knows when the development application will ever be submitted, so there's time to do that, to start looking at putting in place regulations. But that's really the next step that the city has to do. Y'all need to adopt stormwater regulations, stormwater impact fees, stormwater management fees, so you have a revenue stream to start doing these stormwater projects, and then you have the ability to negotiate with applicants who come in after the rules are put in place and say, these are our rules, let's see if we can work out some type of an agreement on, instead of you paying all the stormwater impact fees, you could build a little additional retention here or change your retention a little bit, and we'll give you some impact fee credits. That's how it typically works.
So it was an administrative error, or is that what you're telling me?
I can't say that. I mean, I think it's been presented to this commission about doing stormwater impact fees before.
We spent $65,000 on that thing.
That's step one. You gotta put it into your comp plan, you gotta start adopting rules. I think there's been discussions at this commission or prior commission about doing stormwater impact fees. And those don't go anywhere, apparently. So. But that's what you need to do. There's a lot of studies that just get shelved and never get implemented. We got a study now, we need to implement it.
It's interesting, nobody mentioned that to the commission, that stormwater master plan had to be put into the comp plan that I'm aware of.
I never heard that before.
Well, the comp plan only refers to a 2006 stormwater management plan.
And that pond is supposed to be like, do you know where it's on your property, or?
There's nothing anywhere that says there's supposed to be a pond on this piece of property.
Well, I'm not, it's in our.
Unless you were referring to a stormwater retention on the other side. If this property is developed, and all I'm asking is just to have it rezoned because there was a complaint. My name's Tom Morley, 651 Riverside Landing Drive, Oak Hill, Florida. When we came to the commission months ago to talk about rezoning, this RPUD was approved in 20-something years ago. I thought this was going to be simple. 20-something years ago, this RPD was approved. The ordinance, as far as I know, the city doesn't have a copy of the sign ordinance. They don't have a copy of the sign ordinance. The developer's agreement that was supposed to go with it was never signed. I've been trying since March to try to straighten this mess out, and all I get is its problems or created problems. What we tried to do with our first rezoning was to take this RPUD, which should have been this way to start with, but the planner 20-something years ago had some comments about this little ditch that runs from US 1 down. It's about yay wide. Wanted to make the RPUD not go across that ditch. So the plan was to take this little piece off of this little piece of property and make it part of the RPUD. I started off trying to get the RPUD just on this part and not, and basically swap this part for that part. And we were making great progress. Everybody approved everything, but there was an objection. Originally, my plan was my original plan was, pursuant to my letter that's in the file, March 22nd, 2024, I set forth the problems that I was just kind of explaining to the commission. And my solution was to file an application to rezone. This is what I said do back in March. File an application to rezone C to RPUD and A back to MH3. I was told at that time to don't do that now, because if this one was approved first, which it could be because it's supposed to be a lot shorter process than going to RPUD, don't do that now. At the first hearing, there was an objection, and the objection was, if this is approved and nothing's done with this, then you've got this little RPUD down here that's not 20 acres, it's only 5.5 acres. So what I was informed now, 5 months ago, or after 5 months ago, by about 3 months ago, I need to file a petition to rezone A so that it could be heard or done at the same time as this, so that if this was done, that could be done at the same time. That's all I'm asking to do, is what I wanted to do in March, was told not to do, and then I was requested to do it, so I filed to have it rezoned. There's no plans to do anything with it, but if you look at it, it really should have been part of Lighthouse Cove, and it was planned all along to be part of Lighthouse Cove, but 20 or 30 years ago, there was no water and sewer here, and this was going to be sewage treatment plant for the county. There was a reverter clause in it that some smart person put in there, it wasn't me, that if they didn't use it for sewage treatment, then it would revert back to the owner of the property at the time, which is what happened. But it should have been part of this development, MH3. That's all I'm trying to do at this time. We don't have any stormwater issues, any of that, but if it's ever developed, obviously water that has flowed through this property, we'll have to take care of the water that flows through this property. All I'm doing now is trying to do what I wanted to do back in March and was told not to do. Then I was told I need to do it, so here we are to do it. So that if this goes through on the 11th with the new commission, whoever that may be, then this would go through also. It would be taken out and be made MH3. Did that help clarify anything at all?
Yes. Yes, it did.
Clear as
Can
mud.
I clarify that? So essentially what he was describing is this jut is currently part of the RPUD, and the intent is to rezone it to MH3, so this is all MH3 and consistent and one cohesive development. And then The next item is, which my understanding is going to request continuance to that next hearing. For the actual RPUD, that item is going to be read at the same time so that this swap essentially happens.
Can you show me on that plan where the pond that Mead and Hunt had suggested as something that the city might be, useful to the city, where that would actually be? Because I don't understand where that is either. I just know that it's somewhere on his property.
So it was a potential, and I'm not an engineer, so.
I just want to know exactly, where they said that it should be. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, they identified from my understanding in that stormwater master plan, they identified a high level area of where a stormwater retention pond would be.
So like a variety of possibilities, is
yeah.
that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
I got you, because what I don't want to happen is for the city to lose the ability to negotiate or whatever they have to do to get to that, so that we can implement that plan and use it the way that it was designed to. Because it affects the whole city, not just Mr. Warlick's property.
Understood.
That ditch that comes through his property under they got the little bridge there and everything, that's even the Oak Hill Town Center, or no, the Oak Hill, what do they call it, Preserve? The one up there across the street from River Breeze? Those ditches go through that ditch too. So what I don't want is for the city to lose the ability to negotiate to get that.
But this
if
piece
it's
of property
necessary.
right here has nothing to do with that.
Well, that's why I asked him if he could show me where it is, and he hasn't.
It doesn't have anything to do with it.
Huh?
I've
Well,
never
Mead and
seen
Hunt,
anything like
it exists because Mead and Hunt said that it should be somewhere on your property, Mr. Warlick, and I'm not trying to be argumentative, I'm just, stating the facts.
If she made that statement, have her show you where it is, because I have no idea about any of that. But even if it is supposed to be there, going from RPUD to MH3 doesn't change your ability to put a pond there, if it's supposed to be there. That's all I'm saying. Have them show you where it is. They've never shown me, I've never seen anything about it. From my understanding, from what I heard at
Right,
that
but
hearing.
he works for the city, right? Aren't you working for the city right now? Yeah, so I'm asking our own people, not you.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
He didn't bring it up.
I don't have a picture of, or I don't have a copy of the stormwater master plan with me at the moment because it frankly for this request, what we're looking at is the consistency with the comprehensive plan, and a recommendation for a stormwater pond is not part of that request because we're high level. We don't even have a site plan at this stage.
Got you. I just hate to see the city give up the opportunity to execute that plan the way it was, just laid out for us. And we paid a bunch of money for it, the taxpayers paid for it, and you're saying that we need to have a settling pond there on his property somewhere, and how we get to that, is obviously is some negotiation or something. Nobody's pressing Mr. Warlick to give it to us or anything. We're just trying to understand where it goes and what we would be giving up by doing this now. Would we be giving up anything, Scott? Or?
No.
So there's no reason for us to not go ahead
Well,
with that.
as I said, what you need to do is you need to implement the Mead and Hunt plan you adopted into regulations. You have to adopt regulations. Just adopting a Mead and Hunt plan, I can't tell you how many plans I've seen cities adopt that don't actually make it to implementation. It was a study that was done. If you want to do it, implement it. Start putting the capital project, put it in our 5-year capital project plan. Adopt stormwater regulations that reference it. Adopt stormwater regulations that require impact fees, stormwater management fees. There's things you have to do. You can't start a step at one and assume you're done. There's steps that have to go along the way. Implement. You just got to get to where you have regulations. Then, when somebody comes in and submits the application, as I've cited to you before, if you want to say no to a development plan, by law, you got to cite to a code section. That's what we need to be able to cite to. Say, hey, this code section says you have to comply with these regulations. And you need to pay this type of an impact fee, but we're willing to negotiate with you on this impact fee. If you give us some of that land or you expand the pond, you got to have to make it bigger, to accommodate what our goals were, but we just have to put those regulations in
And the
place.
impact fee is just one possibility, right? I mean, there's many.
I wouldn't say there's many.
Mr. Warlick might just say, you need the pond, you guys were good to me, I'll give it to you, and then we would be good, right? I mean, just
Yeah, I
hypothetical.
mean,
So
yeah.
that's just one way.
Yeah, it is, but while you're there, say hi to Mickey and Minnie because you're in Fantasyland. That doesn't happen. So, I mean, it just doesn't. People just don't give land.
Maybe yours was Fantasyland too, Scott.
No,
you know?
impact
I mean,
fees aren't Fantasyland.
It's
Impact fees are the way things
No
are
reason
done.
to like badger me or anything
No, I'm
like
just
that.
saying, people
I'm
just
saying
don't give up
that
land.
It's
They
just
just
one
don't.
way. It could be something else. We'll give you smaller lot sizes
Yo,
if
you
you
gotta
give us
give
this
them
lot. There'll be a whole
back
bunch
for
of
it.
different possibilities. So
There are, but the impact fees
Taking
are the
that
main way.
attitude
To
just
have
sucks.
development regulations, you gotta have, you gotta incorporate the plan, the study that was done into regulations, so you can do that. I mean, that's what you have to do.
Put that on the next agenda for the 11th, to adopt the stormwater master plan into the comp plan. I don't know the procedures, but you can inform whoever's here. All right, we need a motion.
We need public input.
Do we have public?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Janet Shire.
I just have a process question. I think the planner may have answered it. It says that both of these are first readings, but you had the first reading already on the PUD.
And we're gonna continue this, they're gonna request to continue that. And
Okay,
the goal-
because this one would have to be approved first.
We're gonna have them, the goal was to address the point you raised a few months ago. We were gonna have both, the intent was to have both second readings at the same time, and then make one of those ordinances contingent on the approval of the other one. So they would kind of ineffectively happen simultaneously to address the issue that you pointed out. So
Okay.
This was really, my intent was that this reading would have happened a meeting ago, and then we would be doing two
Okay,
seconds.
well, it was just confusing because they were,
Yeah, they both said
they
first
both said
reading.
first
Yeah.
reading, and then, so I won't have to get back up again during the PUD ordinance. The 60% lot coverage is still in the development agreement, and I think it was Vice Mayor Linlau who
We
made the
approved it.
motion, and it was approved at 40,
Yep.
and it's still showing us 60.
I totally understand, that has to be resolved. But I think they're going to request a continuance of that item to the next commission meeting, so both items will be on the agenda at the same time.
Anyone else, Mr. Ed?
No, sir.
We got a motion?
Make a motion, we approve ordinance 2024-11, rezoning the 5.5 acres in Golden Bay Boulevard.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion from the commissioners. Hearing none, call for the vote.
Mayor Gibson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindau,
Yes.
Commissioner McGee,
Yes.
Commissioner Catagano,
Yes.
Commissioner Hyde.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Moving on. Rezoning ordinance 2024-05.
Well, here I am again. Joey Posey, 420 South Nova, attorney for the landowners, and I think, as was stated at the last hearing, or at the last item, the intent is to have these work together and to address the issue. And quite frankly, I'm also trying to get myself up to speed and address comments I've heard and potentially do this the right way and reconsider some other options that may be out there with how to lay this out. So we need time. So continuing it to the 11th gives us the time necessary to have those discussions, figure out where we're headed, and as it comes forward on the 11th with second reading, then they can be talked in tandem and addressed together. So feels rushed if we do it tonight.
So you're asking to continue it to, we're having a meeting on the 11th, right?
Yes.
Yeah, 2 days, sir.
November 11th at 6 PM.
Correct.
Need a motion or a just consensus?
What do you want? I have to look at the statute real quick. I guess we could do a motion to continue.
Yeah.
Okay,
Be the safest thing.
is there a motion?
A motion to continue 24-05 to the next regular commission meeting of November 11th.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion, commissioners? None? Call for the vote. Oh,
On what?
I don't understand what the hell's going on. Not really.
Well, you can ask her.
Golden
Yeah,
Bay.
she
Why
has to
does
comment on,
Singapore
she's
say-
allowed to speak on anything of substance. I guess it's, could be viewed as substance.
No, actually, the only thing I was going to bring up was what Janet just said about the fact that the 40% wasn't in there. It was listed as 60%, so.
call for the vote.
Mayor Gibson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindell,
Yes.
Commissioner McGee,
Yes.
Commissioner Catagano,
Yes.
Commissioner Hyatt.
Yes.
Next item, city engineer, Meaden
Do
Hunt,
something dumb.
year 2025, scope of services.
Yes, sir. This is the, what Meaden Hunter engineers have provided as far as what their scope of service would be for the new fiscal year. Presented this to you at the previous meeting, and there were some questions, so I have a representative from Meaden Hunt here to answer the questions you may.
Good evening, Brad Blaze, Meaden Hunt. Do we need to go over the scope, or have you all had an opportunity to go through it? Essentially, this is a renewal of what we have been doing for the past few years, I think, starting in 2022. This is review of plans, developer pays the fees, and essentially they pay you whatever our invoice amount is and are therefore reimbursed. So I think there's a marginal amount in here, about $3,000 for any non-development related tasks that may be requested. And then there's an allowance set in place for up to $40,000 in that fiscal year to be paid for by developers to review the plans and process and, you know, work with the planning department and the others to act on your behalf.
I think one of the questions that the last time this came up, your continuing contract outlines the hourly rate for services. So this $40,000 would only be spent if development occurred and services were rendered.
Correct.
And that's your estimate of how much you think it will be.
Yes, I think last year it was, I can't recall off the top of my head, but essentially there's a contract rate. So you would provide that information to the developers that come in. They would submit the plans, we would give an approximate estimate of what we think that effort is worth. And then whatever time is billed on our timesheets goes directly to that developer with the summation of the costs. They pay those fees, they pay them directly to you. We're not getting any fees or in any contractual relationship with the development community whatsoever. You receive the amount that we bill you, and then we're reimbursed for that cost. But other than that, there's no liability or responsibility whatsoever on your part.
Commissioners, questions? Anybody else? Citizens?
Yes. Here, Ray.
Okay, this is the third time that this has been presented by Mr. Adams, and yet we're still looking at the exact same thing that was first presented August 12th. At the August 12th meeting, Mr. McGee stated that the scope of work was very vague. Mr. Catagano brought up the fact that there was a lack of a termination date. The commission told Mr. Adams to go back to Meaden Hunt for more detailed report and a termination date. Action was tabled. It came back again on 9/23. Second time this got brought up, the exact same information was provided. This time, we reminded Mr. Adams that he was supposed to get an updated version with a termination date and details for the scope of work. At that time, Mr. Simpson brought up that there should have been a continuation contract that went back.
Continuing.
Right. Contract that went back to 2017. Mr. Adams was supposed to go back and find that contract because Scott had a copy of revisions that were made to a contract, but it wasn't a signed contract. And yet here we are today with the exact same letter that we had August 12th with no copy of a contract, no detailed information of the scope of the work. And to my knowledge, nobody's ever found this contract, because I asked for a copy of it. I've never seen one sent to me, so I'm assuming, I could be wrong, but I'm assuming nobody ever found the contract. So here we are again for the third time, looking at the exact same information that we've tabled twice already. How many more times does it have to come up to us before we get the information we requested?
Thank you. What's that?
No one else.
No one else. So in data files, we can't find Mead and Hunt's contract?
No, their contract is there. I tell the truth, I didn't remember that I was supposed to be bringing it to the commission. This letter that we have before is not the same letter that was given initially. I have contacted them and they have revised it, and this is the revision that they sent.
The letter here is the same one.
Yeah, I do have a revision date August 20th, second revision September 8th, and this termination for this task assignment, this is for FY 2025. The overall contract has termination clauses, and this basically rides underneath that overall contract. So typically, there is a term and duration of this work, which is FY 2025. So it would commence October 1st and expire September 30th, which is FY '25. And there's also a statement in here that if there's additional funding required, we would indicate if additional funding is necessary to continue that work, we would advise you of that, and you would amend this task authorization. So, but the basic format of the continuing contract provides for individual TAs, and those TAs are set forth similar to this. So this is fairly typical and standard. Scott, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, or?
No, after I looked at this, I think I talked to Brad or emailed Brad, and I think there are several contracts you actually indicated, or the person I talked to at your company indicated they have. And so what you, for various work that, we had the Dick Sewer project, and there were, I think, 3 or 4 different contracts, but one of them was the continuing contract. And what you have with a continuing contract is, there's something called the Consultants Competitive Negotiation Act, and the city has to go out for consultant services bids every time, and engineering services are included within the definition of the consultant. They have in there an exception where you can do what's called a continuing contract, and that calls for project works up to a certain dollar amount, studies up to a certain dollar amount, that you don't have to keep going out for bid every time if it falls within that. You could if you wanted to, but you don't have to. So when you have that continuing contract, then when you have work that's going to be done under the continuing contract, then it will be done by work order authorization or some type of sub-agreement, if you will, which we're talking about here.
Have we found that contract?
According to Jerome, yes. He just said they have it. He has it. Did you say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you please send it to me, as I had requested back in September?
Okay, I don't remember the request, but I'll send it to you.
And it's common for local governments to have multiple continuing contracts with firms. And it could be that certain engineering firms specialize in a certain type of engineering work, and that's where they'll do the continuing, the type of work or study that comes within the scope or authorization of that continuing contract with that firm. So it's a very common practice for local governments. Otherwise, you would have to go, if you don't have the and you go out for bids for the continuing contract. If you didn't have the continuing contract, every time you want engineering work, you would have to go out for bid. Per state law, that's trumps our purchasing guidelines, so you have to go out under state law.
I would just clarify real quick, as far as bidding in the state of Florida, like it or not, just the way the law is written, it's Consultants Competitive Negotiation Act, so it's a qualifications-based selection process. So you evaluate submittals from various firms, pick one or more based on quals, and there is no price component in the submittals. And then once you select the most qualified firm, then you negotiate terms and fees based on that. So the term bid could be misconstrued in certain contexts.
I was talking generally, but.
Sure, I didn't mean
competitively.
to disagree, I just wanted to clarify them.
It's pretty detailed into how you go through that process. But and the legislature has increased that dollar amount. I remember when it was, I think, projects of $1 million. I think now it's up to 4 million?
It's been recently raised to 7.
7 now?
7 million for
Okay.
project value
Okay.
and 500,000 for studies.
Studies, yeah. It used to be like 25, I remember.
It was $1 million and 50, and then it was
Yeah.
4 million and 200, now it's 7 million
Okay.
500.
So it's gone up again. So they keep raising the amount that falls under the continuing contract. So only the really big projects do you have to go out for work for the separate bit of engineering work. And it's engineering, architects, a couple others.
Okay. I'll make a motion, we approve item I2, Mead and Hunt scope change for fiscal year
We're doing I1 or
25.
I2? I thought we were doing I1.
Hmm?
What's that? This is I1.
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Physical
I said
year 25.
That's not what Bill said.
I said
Scope of
I2.
service.
I have I2 here.
That's the next one.
That's the next one.
That one.
Yep, sorry. I1. I'll make a motion, we approve I1 services.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion from the commissioners? None? No more citizen participation? Call for the vote?
Mayor Gibson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindau,
Yes.
Commissioner McGee,
Yes.
Commissioner Catagano,
No.
Commissioner Hyde.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1. City engineer number 2, Mead and Hunt, scope change.
Basically, this is a final reconciliation of the Indian Harbor Estates funding assistance, construction observation, essentially all those tasks to close that out. This project was initially scheduled by the contractor to be completed in July of '23 through various requests on the part of the contractor. That was advanced to November 24th. Following November 24th, after the punch lists were generated and additional work was required from the contractor, that got pushed back to a final completion date of March, I think 25th of 2024. They were deemed substantially complete at that time. However, in order to complete punch list items, have additional work done by pavers, by all these different subcontractors and everything else, payment was withheld for the retainage value until August of '24. So essentially, there is about a 6-month period between when they deemed themselves complete to when the city actually made final payment. Our last pay request that was submitted was at the end of November of 2023. So essentially, this reconciles a portion of the work and the hours that were involved between December of '23 and August of '24. As I said, you won't see any of my time on here. You won't see admin time, supervision time. This is basically field staff, coordination with subcontractors. This is some drafting time, and so we put in a fairly detailed summary of the hours that were billed, and it comes out to about $20,000 for that 8 months worth of work. So we did not request prior authorization prior to incurring this, just to get it done. But this would be a portion of that reconciliation that would close this out. So.
Jerome, do we still have the money available in this, for this line item?
Yes, sir.
This would be reimbursable under the terms of the existing grant. So this is not quote-unquote city funds.
You just answered my question.
Terry Worley.
Okay, my basic question on this. Has staff gone through this bill and compared it to other billings that Mead and Hunt has supplied to us to verify that in fact there are no duplications and that some of this hasn't been already paid, especially when so many of the items go back to 2023? On any of the other change orders and billings that they have presented to us, or do we just take them at their word?
I haven't gone through and double checked against, compared against anything.
So we've not verified any of these billings against anything that we've paid in the past to see if there's any duplication, or just to verify that there's no mistakes anywhere in there? Okay.
If you look at the attachment, you'll see page 1 of 6, 2 of 6, all the way through 3 of 6. There's dates of the task, dates of the person, the numbers of hours broken down to the quarter hour. The first date you'll see on this would be a December date. So there are no dates prior to December on this detailed billing. So if you were to go back to your previous billing reports, you would see that the last date on that was 11/30 or 11/28 or whatever that date was in November, and that these are subsequently billed based on hourly rates. So I'd be more than happy to provide the reconciliation month to month to month, but these are basically rolling numbers.
Why did it take so long to get this?
We simply did not submit a bill until the job was done and complete and finished.
But the job was completed and finished quite a while ago.
It seemed like there was constantly things coming up, and we were constantly spending time.
And we held the money.
And honestly, most of that time was not billed for. If you look at this, not a minute of my time is on this bill. Not a and that would also reflect a lot of the other folks that worked on this project. So I would say, what we didn't want to do is send you a final reconciliation and then come back, send it to you in August and then come back in September and say, well, you got another bill.
So this will be the very last bill we ever see pertaining to the sewer project?
Yes, ma'am.
And
Unless
grant money
you
we
want
have-
something else done, or you want other work to be completed.
Let's hope not.
And that would be subject to another TA.
Yes.
And it's been a painful project, but I'll tell you that to take a project like this on and to be able to get this service with essentially no cost to the city, I can probably point to 20 other projects from Brevard County up to Jacksonville where homeowners are certainly would give their eye teeth for this kind of a deal. So.
No more citizens?
No, sir.
We need a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the additional services payment for $20,344.47 to Mead and Hunt.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion from the commissioners. Hearing none, call for the vote.
Mayor Gibson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Linlaw,
Yes.
Commissioner McGee,
Yes.
Commissioner Catagano,
No.
Commissioner Hyde.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1. Volusia County Sheriff, not in the house. Okay. City Admin, waiving building permit fees relating to storm repairs.
Let me read the title.
Please.
Okay. Resolution number 2024-26 by title only for first and only reading. A resolution of the City of Oak Hill, Volusia County, Florida, providing a waiver of certain application, permit, and plan review fees for repair and reconstruction of commercial and residential structures that sustain damage directly related to Hurricane Milton, providing proof of storm-related damage, providing permit application must be submitted within 30 days, providing an effective date.
A motion to approve Resolution 2024-26.
I'll second.
I have public comments.
My question on this before citizens, an applicant must submit within 30 days? 30 days of what? Yes, Mike? 30 days of what?
Thank you. Heather Edwards from Volusia County sent me a list of what the other cities have done so far. County has waived fees for applications, permits, and plan reviews related to damage, no time frame. Daytona has waived building permit fees from September 1st through February 28th, storm-related or not, I have no idea why. Daytona Beach Shore is on the agenda for the 22nd. They did not report back. DeBarry waived tree removal permit through October 25th. Anything related to storm damage will be announced by 10/16, did not report back. DeLand permit fees are currently being waived for all permits related to hurricane repairs. Fees waived for applications specifically related to Hurricane Milton, no time frame.
That's good.
Well, the issue there is that I know people who are still waiting for FEMA to resolve Ian and Nicole. They are just astonishingly slow.
Yeah.
Edgewater resolution was presented on the 21st. They did not report back. Holly Hill on the 22nd did not report back. Lake Helen, permit fees waived for permits submitted through April 30th. They want an affidavit of damage verification, so forth and so on. New Smyrna Beach for discussion 22nd, no report. Orange City, 22nd, no report. Ormond Beach, permit fees related to damage caused by the hurricane have been waived by City Commission. You still need a building permit if you're doing anything else, and that makes sense. No end date. Pearson and Ponce Inlet, we're going to discuss on the 22nd and 17th, no answer. Port Orange amused me. Per the City of Port Orange Executive Order Number 7, fees for permits related for repair or replacement shall be temporarily waived, again, with no final date. And I think that, yes, we should be waiving the permit fees for any damage from Milton, not for anything else. If I want to build something not related, then I'm going to pay the fee.
Right.
And there should not be a close date on it because, as I say, there are people still waiting for FEMA to wake up from Ian and Nicole. I've had trouble with FEMA. As you well know, I'm pretty good at pushing paper. They insist that my residence is a post office box. Now, you've been out to my place, and you know that all my junk is not going to fit in a P.O. box. So.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
Yeah, I can tell you what Holly Hill and Lake Helen did, is that They waive permit fees, but it's only if the owner requests the permit, not if you get a contractor. And it's for applications, you have to submit to the building department after October 10th, but no later than December 1st. So they have a time frame in there.
Well, the 30 days bothers me.
Well,
No,
I'm kind of curious though, the contract, there typically people will hire a contractor who will go get the permits.
I asked the city manager, that's in Holly Hill, because Holly Hill did it, and I used that as a form to use for Lake Helen. And I asked them why, and it was, they said a lot of people who do small restoration work try to do it themselves. That's who they're trying to help. Contractors who are in the business of doing it, that's a longer, different process, and it has to be directly related to and confirmed to be related to the hurricane. You can't do like an addition or something like that. Because I asked the same question. I said, if somebody needs a new roof because of the hurricane,
Right.
they could use it. But I just want to let you know that's what Lake Helen and Holly Hill did.
See, I made a note on here, thinking when I read this, must show FEMA claim application, a dated claim application. And I think that claim form states what hurricane the damage occurred from.
It does.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And I don't, should that be stated in this resolution?
Well, what if you need a permit that you're not going through FEMA for, though? Maybe, because there's some people that may not qualify for FEMA damages, but still may need a permit to make repairs on their home.
Then it wouldn't be storm related.
Well, it would be.
Tree
May not
that's
be-
broken.
They
and
may
they
not
gotta get a
qualify
permit to
under
lose the
FEMA
tree.
because they make too much money or something,
Okay. You convinced me. I just want to make sure we don't get ripped
I don't-
off,
No.
because people have a bad habit of,
You can always extend the date if there's more applicants coming in.
okay. Citizen?
Period wording.
I just have one question on this. For the most part, I didn't have a problem with it, but the variance question, it's section 4, in the event a variance is required to reconstruct the structure, the applicant will be responsible for actual cost of due public and legal notice, but will not be charged the administrative fee. My question is, if an owner has already gotten a variance for whatever was, let's say there was a variance given for a porch and the porch got damaged, why do they have to go back and redo that? And why, and if it wasn't, let's say now they want to put a porch on the house, but that new porch is now going to require a variance, then they should go through the complete process of that.
For non-conforming structures. You need a variance to rebuild your house if it was built previously, it's too small or something. That would be 1,500 square feet. If your house was smaller than that, you need a variance to replace it.
Okay. But shouldn't that come up maybe case by case?
I think they all should.
Yeah. That was my only question, was in reference to the variance clause in there.
Comments? Is there a motion?
Would you be more comfortable if we removed the 30-day provision?
Well,
Make it the
It'll-
end of the year, maybe?
If it becomes an issue, the person's gonna come to the commission for
Okay.
approval and present evidence that,
Okay.
circumstances why it wasn't done within 30
Yeah.
days,
Okay.
I think.
That sounds reasonable.
It could be handled.
And anybody waiting on FEMA is gonna wait longer than 30 days.
Oh,
Yeah.
motion?
He did first, I did second.
Okay.
We did.
We got a motion and a second. Legal? Any comment?
We were just discussing, because that's not the resolution that was done by Holly Hill and Lake Helen, and he was saying, well, you sent it to me. I said, well, that's not the one that's not the one they did. So, we were just trying to straighten that out, because theirs is different, like, they don't allow contractors to do waive fees. They have that time frame I told you about, so.
Okay. Any other comments, concerns? Call for the vote?
Mayor Gibson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Linlaw,
Yes.
Commissioner McGee,
Yes.
Commissioner Katigana,
Yes.
Commissioner Hyde.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-1. 5-0. I told you I messed up today. New business, debris hauling and monitoring, resolution 2024-27.
Resolution number 2024-27, by title only for first and only reading. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Oak Hill, Florida, establishing a not-to-exceed price of $1 million with Crowder Golf Inc. for the provision of debris hauling services following Hurricane Milton, establishing a not-to-exceed price of $400,000 with Thompson Consulting Inc. for the provision of debris monitoring services following Hurricane Milton, and authorizing the city administrator to execute the same, providing severability and providing for an effective date.
What's the source of this funds for the 1 million and the 400,000? That FEMA reimbursement?
Yes, that
So
would be FEMA
that's what
reimbursement.
FEMA's gonna reimburse us for? Or
that's
it's a pass-through?
Up to,
Yeah. That's the not to exceed cost that we'll submit to FEMA and we'll get reimbursed.
Okay.
But it's not to exceed, and I do believe you got this from me, because Holly Hill needed to do it. So I said, this is what Holly Hill just adopted, just for FEMA compliance. And with the contracts you have there, you need a not to exceed amount.
Right.
Holly Hill used $1,400,000. That, I really don't think that's what y'all are looking at price-wise here. So I think he just used the numbers that Holly Hill used. They had a totally different situation there. And they may not even be planning on using that full amount either. It's only what you're gonna spend. And you have you're not telling the contractors, hey, you can spend up to $1 million, we'll pay you $1 million. There's a rate in the contract, that we piggyback to believe the county's contracts with them. The county bid these contracts, they're per cubic yard, and their rates set for the haul, the monitors, so, if the dollar figures, I was reading it, I said, dollar figure might give you a heartburn. I think y'all could probably lessen it, and still be okay. You're not, based on what Jerome said, you're gonna be done in 2 weeks, right? So I don't think your debris hauling is gonna be anything compared to something like what Holly Hill saw coming.
But all I was interested in was whether or not it was,
Yeah.
that we.
Well, you
we
still
can
gotta
get
pay it.
reimbursed. We gotta pay it, but we get
You
reimbursed.
And there's a lot of cities still waiting to be reimbursed from Ian.
yes.
So it's not,
Right, but do we have the ARPA money or a source of funds to pay what we estimate is gonna happen in the next 2 weeks?
We don't have $1 million in the ARPA funds. We have enough to fund like half of that we could use.
Well, I'm not
still
saying
have-
the 1,400,000,
Yeah.
I'm saying what we're expecting.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Because we have, the funds that we're getting back from DEP for the sewer project that we'll be getting back. Plus, taxes, when people start paying their taxes, we'll be getting those funds too.
If it exceeds 300,000, I'll be surprised.
Yeah.
I think when I sent this resolution to Lake Helen, they cut everything in half.
Yeah.
Is what they did. And you have no idea, you have a general idea, but it's really kind of hard to tell the volume, how everything stacks up in those trucks and everything like that, so. Okay.
Any idea when they're gonna be in Oak Hill?
Wednesday,
Wednesday,
if you
beautiful.
approve this.
They can come to my
Can
house,
we
I don't
lower the
have
dollar
anything.
amount?
Can you lower the dollar amount?
Yeah,
Sure.
I mean, $1 million just seems a bit excessive.
If we had a number of big, huge trees down, I could see it possibly getting higher.
Than
But,
$1 million?
but I was, yeah, but we don't have that big an issue. So we could go 500,000 rather than $1 million.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. That's,
And,
250 on the other?
yeah.
Or 200?
200 on Thompson's Consulting, yeah. That's my suggestion.
I agree with that.
Sounds okay to me.
What does it mean, debris monitoring?
They have to have somebody.
That's a great question. It really is. It's a FEMA requirement.
Yep.
As, you know, FEMA wants to make sure that there's not fraud going on. And I guess I shouldn't say a lot, there have been instances where people would put things, like kind of build false floors in the bottom of trucks, so they just filled like the top half of the truck, but it looks full. And then they take it in, and then FEMA pays based on the full cubic
Full
yards
cubic yard.
of the truck. I've heard that has happened before. So they put these the monitoring requirement, and these people inspect every truck getting loaded.
You'll see them.
Yeah, and they got to take
You'll see 'em.
pictures and GPS locations of where it was being hauled and
They
picked up.
follow the trucks around.
That's all they do
Yeah,
is follow
I've
the
never
truck.
actually seen them do it, I'm just telling you what I've heard, and, but
we've
it's all
seen 'em.
because FEMA's trying to prevent fraud. And I keep saying, it's costing more to prevent fraud than it is the fraud. It would just pay for the fraud, it'd be a lot better.
Well,
But,
I'm going to share something with you before I got on the commission. We had a company that monitored the pickup. Husband, wife, daughter. When I get on the commission, they're presented a bill from FEMA, this city, $60,000. Because they counted trucks from Osteen, and FEMA caught it. And I was just put on the commission, and I said, here's your problem, because they said, we're not going to pay it. I said, if you don't pay it, and there's another storm, you're not collecting from FEMA. Linda was on the commission at that time. I convinced them to pay that $60,000, but they didn't want to pay it. They also didn't go after the firm that made the reporting error, and they should have. But that was then. Now it's now. It's aggravating, but it's unfortunate people take advantage.
That was like a fine to the monitoring
No,
company?
that was
payment of the-
$60,000 was overpayment to the city of Oak Hill, and FEMA wanted the money back.
Oh, I got you.
Got it?
I guess it was Osteen's.
Gotcha.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
basically, you have to use a FEMA kind of pre-approved hauler and monitor. And, you know, I don't want to say it's a racket, but I mean, it's a racket.
I'll say it.
But you know, you have to use them to increase your chances of getting reimbursed. In 2017 in Lake Helen, I think in 2017 we had 2 storms. The first storm, and I'm definitely going off memory here, is they followed all the FEMA stuff, you know, the monitors and all that stuff. And I want to say they spent about $200,000. And then they had the second storm come in, and the manager at the time, administrator at the time, said, you know, there's got to be a better way to do this. And so he came up with the idea they were just going to use local haulers, haul things down to a big field, and get a burn permit from DEP, and just burn it, not haul it out to the landfill and pay the tipping charge and all the other stuff. I want to say the second storm they spent about $60,000. Still got everything cleaned up, I think in less time. And ultimately still got reimbursed from FEMA, even though they didn't follow all these strict rules. Now, they did that in 2002 for Irma, and they're having a very hard time getting reimbursed. I don't know if they've changed, FEMA's cracked down more since 2017 to 2022. This year, from Milton, they are doing they are following the FEMA guidelines under the auspice of being better chance of being able to be reimbursed.
Get the money back.
Yeah. Now, there is supposedly this process where you can become pre-certified through the state with FEMA, where you will almost immediately get a certain percentage of your money. And you have to have certain policies in place. That is something new that's being implemented right at this time.
Does anybody remember what we paid when Matthew came through?
Off the top of my head, no, Carrie, sorry.
Because I can remember in 2005, when Charlie came through in Osceola County, okay? FEMA had, they brought all the big trucks in and they brought all of the debris to Jenny Overstreet's property, okay? They had a great big tower built there. And as every one of those trucks came in to unload the stuff, there was an inspector up there taking pictures of every single truck that came in. Then they ground everything up and they had burn tunnels. When Matthew came through and FEMA came in here, they had people following the big truck in a pickup truck. And that was how they were monitoring the pickup of the stuff. So do we have any idea how they're going to be doing the monitoring this time?
Wish I could answer.
Plus, I have a list where they dump it, they raise it up and look at the truck.
We need a motion
That's how they'll do it.
with the changes.
I'll amend my motion.
Oh,
Oh,
Mr.
sorry.
Adams, call.
Go ahead.
John Taylor?
I had a couple of questions. Is, the $1 million, is the company, is Crowder Golf aware of that? That fee, that limit? Because if I'm Crowder Golf, I'm just gonna turn in $900,000.
Well, you have to be able to justify
Not with
it.
these people following you, you won't.
How many truckloads, how many cubic feet they're hauling at that, so they just can't say,
Yeah,
give
but
us a
wait,
bill.
isn't that what the $400,000 for monitoring is supposed to do? I mean, it seems like we're double dipping here, right? That they're double dipping, and I understand you've made it clear that to qualify for your money back from FEMA, that you've got to jump through the hoops that they say.
Increase your chances of qualifying.
There you go. It just seems, exorbitant, $1 million. So I'm for the reduction.
We changed that to
For,
500.
okay. And the other question I had that you tried to answer, I think, and probably nobody's got an answer for, is what is the 400,000 worth of monitoring? I mean,
There are people
that drive around
Yep.
taking
Watch 'em.
pictures, GPS locations, pictures.
and you have to have those to qualify,
reimbursed.
to
FEMA
attempt to
requires
qualify
it,
for
For FEMA money.
for FEMA.
These are
Okay.
FEMA rules. and-
Okay, thank you.
Next.
Carrie Wording?
I already spoke.
Yes, she did.
That's it.
We need a motion.
Okay, resolve my motion 24-27 to change the amounts from 1 million to 500,000 for Crowder Golf and 200,000 for Thompson Consulting.
I'll
Second.
second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion from the commissioners?
Nope.
No. Call for the vote.
Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindlow?
Yes.
Commissioner McGee?
Yes.
Commissioner Katagana?
Yes.
Commissioner Hydes?
Yes.
Motion passes. Second item, NIST Cybersecurity Standards, Resolution 2024-28.
Resolution number 2024-28 by title only, for first and only reading. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Oak Hill, Florida, adopting the National Institute of Standards and Technology Cybersecurity Framework and authorize the Chief Technology Officer to complete the local governance cybersecurity standards attestation form via the Florida Digital Service online portal before January 1st, 2025 deadline, providing for severability and provide for an effective date.
I got a couple of questions. Did funding come with this directive?
This came up, once again, I saw this at a Holly Hill meeting that was brought by their IT person. And so I sent it to the other cities I represent and say, hey, were you all aware of this? And now it's on your agenda. So I don't know very much about this. I know there's a change in the law. I'm not aware if there's any funding in it.
Who's our CTO? So it's an unfunded requirement, basically, unless we know different.
That's right. But I don't know, know what
we're surprised.
what the financial burden of complying with this would be. I don't know. So I don't know that there is an unfunded mandate because there may not be nothing to spend.
Yeah.
No, they've given us, all right, but the other question I had is, can we get this done by January? Whatever it is, what we have to do to qualify or satisfy this. It says we gotta be done by January, okay? It's now or the end of October.
It's saying they have to adopt standards. I don't read it to say that there's anything that we need to implement. It's saying that we're going to be following these standards and putting these standards in place as far as cybersecurity is concerned. I have to review what those standards are. We do have some safeguards in place already. One of the conferences I attended, there was a gentleman there from UCF that was actually talking about this item. Didn't realize at the time that it was something that we were required to do by a certain date. But they have they provide training to cities, to their IT staff to implement cybersecurity measures. So I can reach out to him again after reviewing this, see what we could get from them. They were getting funding through the state, and they were assisting cities to make sure that they complied. So,
Okay, I'm just thinking it's almost November. We've got Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up. You're gonna have to present it to the commission for approval for setting the standards, wouldn't you? Okay, so you got 2 meetings.
We just have to adopt the standards according to the regulations.
Yeah.
That's all.
You don't have to really do anything.
We don't know what they are yet.
Well, that'll be done in December, not November.
I
Yeah.
think the standards were attached to what Holly Hill adopted, so I could send those to you. I mean, there's.
Just say adopt, not implement.
Yes.
So that means by the meeting in December,
Yep.
2 meetings from now, we know what we're adopting.
Yep, we need a motion.
Who's our technology officer?
Jerome, Mr. Adams.
Okay.
Has a degree in it.
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution 2024-28, adopting the internet security, cybersecurity standards.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments from citizens?
Kara Waring.
Well, I wanted to know who our officer was and what exactly the requirements we need, but we don't know what that is. So, kind of answered questions I had.
Okay. Commissioners? No comments? Call for the vote?
Mayor Gibson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindau.
Yes.
Commissioner McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Catagano.
Just because we don't know what we're voting on here, I'm going to have to say no.
Commissioner Hyatt.
Yes.
Motion passes. Let's go to boards and committees. Economic Development. Mr. Arman? Nothing. Public Works? Nothing. Comments, concerns from commissioners? Ms. Hyatt?
Everybody's invited to the Fall Festival at the First Baptist Church on Thursday from 4 until 6.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Okay. Mr. Catagano? Not a thing, okay.
I've got a question. There's been a lot of FEMA,
Museum?
Excuse me.
Sorry.
there's been a lot of FEMA reports and says you can apply for this and apply for that, and here's a deadline for this. Is there a way for us to put them on the citizens component of our website so that, so here's
Here's a link.
Volusia
Link to
County's been
FEMA.
putting out, hey, if you do this, or you apply for this, or you need funding for this, or whatever, there's been a bunch of that come out here in the last week. Can we post that on our website?
Yeah.
So our citizens can have access to that information?
Yeah, we actually have on the website, Kathy actually did like an FAQ, if you want to call it that.
Okay,
With a list
I
of
looked this
stuff.
morning, but didn't know where to look, so, but
Yeah,
I looked under the community, but I didn't look there, so, okay.
Yeah, and I can make sure that it gets updated.
Some kind of flag or something to say, here, look here. Okay, okay, but there's a lot of our citizens that probably could use that kind of assistance from the county and FEMA and all that. So, okay, that's all I got.
Okay, Vice Mayor?
Well, as everyone knows, or most everyone knows, this is my last official meeting as the Vice Mayor and Commissioner for the City of Oak Hill. I want to say that it has been an honor and a pleasure to serve you all the last 8 years that I've worked here. We've made some pretty substantial accomplishments to make the city a better place that I'm very proud of. And I wish whoever ends up here after the elections the very best, because if they're successful, then our city will be successful. And I hope to see a lot of you around at the functions around the city, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank
We'll
you.
miss you, Bill.
Thank you. I figure after 54 years in public service, it's time to take a break.
Is there a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Commission meeting